Welcome. Ah, it's been what 3 weeks since we've done one of these. This is crazy. I know. I'm so sorry. I haven't been neglecting you. It's not because I've gotten a couple of new subscribers. I forgot about you guys. It's the fact that, to be honest with you, I was on vacation one week, and what happened last week? I think it was raining outside, and the kids were up early, so I couldn't really get to one of these. But how's everybody doing out there in the chat today? Good morning. Hey, everybody. I don't think we'll have too many people here because this was kind of like, we were getting up to almost 200 people because it was being consistent. But now it's, I think after you missed a couple of weeks, so, I don't expect a lot of people to be here. But it's good to see those of you who did show up and got the notification. Secret Squirrel, this is your show. Secret Squirrel, I love you, Secret Squirrel. Toothbrush time. It's not a toothbrush. Secret Squirrel, we got all these new subscribers here. They're going to be thinking that this is a toothbrush. But I was from Secret Squirrel. Secret Squirrel is killing me. She always kills me. Oh, my God. Why do I always call you a she, too? She, possibly he, I don't know. But Secret Squirrel, you're my. I gotta remember. I'm an old guy, so I gender neutral terms of gender neutral pronouns. It's a little bit more difficult, but I'm learning. Hopefully, don't don't be mad at me. Oh, here it is. And yes, it does look like a toothbrush, and that's why Secret Squirrel said that, because to fool you. Oh God, the spoon is back. Yes. This is my trademark, like the lamp and like Baby Yoda. The spoon is now part of the plan. It's good to see everybody out there. Oh yeah, hey, thanks. Yes. I'm shocked. And it's interesting. When I first started doing the police videos, I started getting a lot of people who from the left who were loving me, right? Oh my God, because they appreciated the facts. The facts, seemed to work well with what they were trying to do. But then they forget that, I'm just straight down the line. So whatever the facts show, I'm with it. So when the facts don't support the narrative, now I'm an Uncle Tom. So, so I went from being a great liberal lawyer to now an Uncle Tom, and then after the next video, I'll be back to a liberal lawyer. So it ebb and flows, but I'm extremely happy with the success. It is undeniably insane. And one thing I've noticed is that all my other work for police shooting videos and that law related material has just exploded, like all the views and everything. So it is it's really crazy. So it's been really working out for me. So but thanks for all the support, and that's why I'm here, because you can't forget the people who helped you get here, and most of the people who on this stream who see me at 9 a.m. in the morning, not 9 a.m. What am I talking about? 6 a.m. in the morning, and we used to have those conversations when there was only 1,000 people who subscribed. So yeah, so we're I'm never going to forget about you guys, because without you guys I wouldn't have this channel. So but thank you for those supporters who've been here from the beginning. It's been amazing. Thank you. No, we did it. We're doing it. We're on our way. So let me dispense with the big problem in the room, right? The non-sex show, right? I'm just going to start with that first, because I'm not going to speak about that for too long. The non-sex show, which you guys, for all the new fans out there, the non-sex show was a show here on YouTube. It had about 30,000 subs, and it had two hosts, and the show was an interesting show. I appeared on the show one time, and the show was a good show. It really took like the fringe groups of what was going on in the internet and just gave them a platform. And then you had people who would challenge those ideas, like everything from race realism to flat earth to creation science. So that's what it was, kind of like the battleground for that. And they got really successful doing those things. But the problem is that you had two people who tolerated each other for a long time, and eventually the relationship broke up. So they sued each other. So you had this lawsuit, and at the end of the day, the lawsuit really is meaningless. at the end of the day, right? The channel is more or less destroyed and dead. There's really no money left from anything they were doing. So when you look through the legal documents and look through what's going on, it's more of just a battle of wills than anything, because no matter who wins the lawsuit, they both lose, really technically. So I've just decided to move that content to my other channel, MP Resurrection. It's on Twitter. I think I'll put the link in the description. So all that content is just going to be over there. What I did is I've unlisted all the videos on this channel, and I just put them in a playlist. So if you go to the non-sec playlist, you can still watch those videos if you choose to. If you don't, so those videos aren't gone, because I think there should be a record of what happened with the non-sec show. But otherwise, I'm not going to really put them on my channel, because I think it's a good place where people can see what happened. But at this point in time, it's like I'm not really going to follow the case as closely as we were following it before, because it just doesn't. It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. I always tell my clients, what are we trying to get? Are we trying to get money, or are we trying to get revenge? If you're trying to get revenge, as long as I can get paid, then let's go get it. But if you can't pay me, then I have nothing to do with it. If we're trying to get money, okay. They're just in it for vengeance, and there's no money. That's the worst possible scenario in these situations. So let them have their vengeance. If anything interesting happens, I will make it up. Let me see. Somebody's telling me to go check it. I am Rick. Oh, all right. But listen, I don't give legal advice, because I've been getting a lot of messages about legal advice. I cannot get legal advice. I just can't. I'm so sorry. I understand. But I will check out your message, because I've been messaging people back. But if it's about legal advice, that means you have specific issue that you want me to apply law to help you. That's not going to happen. I just want to just make sure. But I'll give you any type of any other advice other than that. But just to be clear, also, I do want to mention that the past week I've been getting so many requests for interviews. It's been insane. I just have to say it, from news outlets to everything. It's been insane. It just has. So if you send me DMs, last I checked, I had like 99 DMs that I haven't read. It's just almost too much. Facebook, it's just too much. It really is. And I'm a one-man show. So trying to read through. So if I don't respond to your DM or message individually, it's not because I don't want to. It's just because there are just so many to respond to. So please don't take it as a sign of disrespect. Don't take it as a sign of ignoring you. It's just, I can't just respond to everything. I would be here all day just responding to those inquiries. It's just not going to happen. So, I'm sorry, and I've had to, just, look through them just for people who I do know and who I have relationships with. It's been a little tougher, but I really feel bad, because when somebody takes the time to write something out, even something personal, I always want to just at least read it and respond to it. And it's at first it just really just became unbearable, between comments. Think about this. I used to read every comment. Now each one of my videos is getting like 1,000 comments. So the Brianna Taylor video got almost 6,000 comments. I can't read all that, so so I had to turn off notifications for comments. Then DMs for Twitter. It was coming in so bad that I think the night before last, I was getting so many DMs on Twitter, I had to turn off the Twitter notifications. Then it became crazy on Facebook, and I had to turn off the Facebook notifications. So, I do understand, but I do want to make it just the point is that, I'm not ignoring you. It's just too much right now. So hopefully when things calm down, I can start, or maybe even get somebody to help. You need a secretary, super secret secretary. All right. And that's true. Squirrel, you have asked me to help out. So I'm definitely going to need some help, but that's just what, and it just kind of came overnight. So, I'm just trying to make amends with that. So now that we got all that stuff out of the way, we got non-sec out of the way. That's going to the other channel. And, we have, so all that is done. Let's talk about what's been going on with the channel. Yes. Last time I did one of these, I had less than 10,000 subscribers. Last time I did one of these, I had less than 10,000 subscribers. Today I'm at like 41, almost 42,000. It has been one hell of week. It's been one hell of a week, and obviously everybody understands what happened, because one thing, the most popular videos on my channel have always been my legal breakdowns of stuff, like from Mike Flynn to Jacob Blake to all the police shootings. And that's because for those videos, I try unbearably so to be straight down the line. You know, I try not to take either side, you know, even though I do support reforms in the police department, but I really want people just to look at the evidence for what it is. Just like even the next video I'm doing, you know, it's just like, let's just look at the evidence and the law and let you make the decision. And that's really taking off. I think a lot of people appreciate just being given the evidence and the law and coming to their own decision, because I think most people are reasonable, but if you try to sway them in one way or the other, then people resent that. So if I just give you the facts and then you make the decision, then, you know, it's easier, because I think most people would come to the same decision if they had the facts and if they knew the law, you know, and would understand why that decision was made. And that's why I think the Brianna Taylor video is doing so well. Shout out from Detroit, great work. But thank you so much, But that was always my idea about doing the videos the way I do them, the making you the jury and making you make the decision, because it gives you not only the power to, but it also lets you see how your opinion, you know, if you're a reasonable person and how your opinions. And one thing I do appreciate about the Brianna Taylor video is that a lot of people have taken that video and it's changed minds. And what I mean by changing minds is that it woke people up to show them that, hey, the media is trying to run a narrative on you in a lot of these things. And it's not to say that the media can't be, because they're not perfect, but they run a narrative a lot of the times. They give you false information. They get you emotionally invested. And then it's hard to take people from that position where they got, you know, all that fake information, they've already made a decision, to now giving them the real information. And then them kind of like decompressing and saying, okay, this is what really happened. And that's what's been going on with Brianna Taylor. A lot of people, most people, my wife, her friends, the people who I hang out with, did not know any of the information I presented in that Brianna Taylor video. And then when they saw it, instantly they changed their mind. They said, okay, yeah, this was more than what I thought it was. And I think that is the power of doing videos in the way I do them. So check this out. For the Brianna Taylor case, the grand jury transcripts have come out, the recordings of the grand jury proceedings come out. Now that's extremely rare. So as you know what we like to do, let's look at ABC News, because just so we can all understand, they had expected that when the grand jury proceedings came out, that there would be some type of backlash, that let me put it like this. So when the grand jury proceedings came out, they thought that there would be some type of backlash, right? They thought that there was some type of bomb within the grand jury transcripts that would show that the prosecutor was corrupt, that he didn't do X, Y, and Z. You know, they were showing, they thought that this was something crazy. And on top of that, Benjamin Crump, who, interestingly enough, I have a Benjamin Crump story. So there was another case of a black man who was killed in a particular facility. I can't really give you too many details of the case, because obviously, you know, it's a case. But a client came to me and wanted me to represent them in this case against the state. The person had been injured by the state and wanted to seek justice. So I told that person, I sent that person to Crump. I was like, well, listen, you need to go to Crump, because this is Crump's thing. You know what I'm saying? If number one, across state lines, he already has the infrastructure to take care of it. And the person and the case had already went to press. So in other words, it was a press case where, you know, the news media was already involved. So it's a case like that where you're trying to get the person the best possible result, the news media is involved. Go to Crump, because Crump is the person who's the face of this thing. You know what I'm saying? He's the new Johnny Cochran. You know, so if I have situations like that, go to Crump. So this person did go to Crump, and Crump did take the case. But one thing is that, you know, a lot of people who say they hate Crump don't understand that certain lawyers are very good at what they do, right? And Crump is extremely good at getting those families paid. If I had a problem, I would be going to Crump. That's just not what I do. I'm pre-litigation. So if I'm the person who, if you see my cases in the media, then I failed my client, right? My cases, you don't see my cases in the media. If that happens, I failed my client. I just closed the case against a huge institution maybe a week ago, right? But you won't see any of that because we've settled. We've got it. You'll never see any of that in the news, right? Because if that happens to me, then I failed my client. I even have another case going on right now where, if you see anything, if you see me filing paperwork, that means I failed my client. We didn't come to a resolution. So that's my Ben Crump story. So I've been, involved in cases where I've had to send it to Crump and Crump has taken the cases. So, but I think Crump can get a little crazy when it comes to his, his statements about things. But he's got a reputation to maintain, and he's got to do what he's got to do to continue to make his clients. So, but that's my Ben Crump story. Let me see, Breezy. I think you like it here. Thanks, Nate in the chat. A good mix. All right, so. I went on my tangent about the Ben Crump case that I sent to Crump. So now let's talk about Brianna Taylor. So the grand jury tapes come out. Everybody thinks it's going to be a bomb. I start getting messages from friends like, "Oh my God, the grand jury tapes! You may have to do a retraction." I'm like, "What do I have to do a retraction?" The warrant's there. Like everything is there in the description of the Brianna Taylor video. The warrant's there. The transcripts are there. Like it's not like I just tell you this stuff and don't give you the evidence. Just click on the description. The links are there. Check it out yourself. The transcript. So the first thing was like, how do you know it was the warrant? I say because I looked at the warrant, then I looked at the news articles about the warrant, and all the dates lined up, all the times lined up. So and then I went and saw like, oh, this is the actual warrant. So it's all there. It's all there. Like don't believe me. You should never believe me, right? If you see the documentary evidence, go check that out and believe it for yourself. So. This is the news, and we'll go over this news report because this news report is going over the grand jury transcripts and to try to see what the prosecutor went wrong. Now the prosecutor, they've been saying that he's he's what's it called, a coon. He's what do they call him, an Oreo? He's just skin folk and not kinfolk. Like they've been killing him like crazy. And I think the brother did a good job. I think he just looked at the facts and said, "This is what I got." And cops being spied upon. This is it. I think he did the best with what he had, and it had to be hard for that guy to know that the black community was saying, arrest these cops, lock these cops up. But he had to at one point say, "Is this the right thing to do?" And he came to a decision that was unpopular. And I think for justice sakes, each person hopes that the prosecutor, if you're in trouble, you want the prosecutor to do the legal thing, the lawful thing, right? You don't want the prosecutor you do not want a prosecutor who's going to bend to public pressure. The guy who was in Atlanta charging the cop in the Brooks case, that was just bending to public pressure. Right. That's the most dangerous type of prosecutor, the prosecutor who's prosecuting for the mob. You don't want that type of prosecutor. You want a prosecutor who has evidence, looks at that evidence and says, okay, this is what the evidence shows. And is there enough evidence here to charge the person or not? That's what you want to look at. So let's look at ABC News telling us about the bombshell, which is Brianna Taylor's case.
Two-and-a-half-day grand jury investigation into Taylor's death after a judge ordered it. That grand jury did not charge any officers with Taylor's death and just one former officer with endangering Taylor's neighbors. The prosecutor said this at the time.
According to Kentucky law, the use of force by Mattingly and Cosgrove was justified to protect themselves. This justification bars us from pursuing criminal charges in Miss Brianna Taylor's death.
That, of course, sparked outrage and protests. The tapes released today come after an anonymous member of the grand jury filed a lawsuit accusing
Now I want to stop it here for a second, and I think this is an important piece to it. Is that, remember when I kept telling you guys about the two pieces of justification here, those two cases, Tennessee v. Gardner, and what's the other case, Graham v. Connor. Those two cases really determine if police officers are either justified or not justified in using force. And what this prosecutor is just saying is that, hey, officers who are being fired upon, who return fire, are justified in using force in that way, right? And they would be justified even if they weren't police officers. Somebody's shooting at them and they return fire. So that's the reason why he didn't present it, because he believes that under that constitutionally, those officers were justified, and that it would be wrong for him to bring a case against people who he has clear evidence that are justified in shooting. So in other words, prosecutors don't bring cases that they know they can't win, right? Prosecutors bring cases that they can win. And it will be unjust if I have evidence that you're innocent and still bring a case against you. So that's why this prosecutor didn't present that, because he's saying, well, hey, I had clear evidence to show that this was that this was justified. And even if the grand jury would have indicted those officers, it would be the prosecutor who would have to prosecute them. And if that does happen, they just won't bring the charges. They won't prosecute it. So, I do understand the fact that someone was killed, but not every time someone's killed, even by police or by anybody else, doesn't mean it's criminal, right? There are people killed every day that aren't killed in a criminal act. People who are driving on a highway, for instance. If there's just a plain accident, then nobody's going to jail for that unless they've committed some criminal act. If they're drinking, if they're inebriated in some way, that becomes criminal. So unfortunately, in the world of police shootings, accidents happen, and things happen that unfortunately the police who were involved may accidentally kill someone. Like I think this was an accidental killing for Brianna Taylor, but it wasn't criminal. Maybe there was this civil liability. Yeah, they may have to pay her family, but it's not criminal. And I think that's what people have to understand. Just because someone dies doesn't mean it's a criminal offense. And I think in Brianna Taylor's case, it's one of those cases where, someone did get killed in a horrible way, but it doesn't mean that these cops committed first-degree murder. Like, it was funny because the stories I was hearing before is like the cops busted through the door unannounced, took the guns, and saw Brianna Taylor in bed and stood over her and just, gunned her down. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. And that's murder. This was a tragic accident. Let's continue on with the video.
Using the prosecutor trying to deflect responsibility for the charging decision. ABC's Alex Perez has been poring over these new tapes. Joins us now. Thanks so much, Alex. Learned today about the case, especially about the question of whether those three officers announced themselves before barging into Brianna Taylor's home in the middle of the night.
Well, Lindsay, first of all, we can't punctuate enough just how rare it is to have a look at the grand jury proceedings at this point in the criminal case. Now, in terms of what we learned from these tapes when it comes to police barging in, we knew from before that officers were serving a no-knock search warrant. But we've learned through testimony that they say once they arrived there, they discussed the fact that Jamarcus Glover, that's Brianna Taylor's ex-boyfriend and sort of the center of the warrant, had been taken into custody earlier that evening. So they say because of that, they turned this into a knock and announce warrant.
Now, if you listen to that, it makes it very clear what happened, right? They're going to raid the trap houses. If you guys watch, I'm hoping everybody watched the Brianna Taylor video because I'm going to be talking like as if you did. So they raided the trap houses, right? And they were so Brianna Taylor's raid was a part of a larger raid, or a larger group of raids, right? Because at that time they were raiding the three trap houses and Brianna Taylor's house at the same time. So they raided the trap houses and got Jamarcus Glover, right? The main guy who they believed was the ringleader of all this. So going to Brianna Taylor's house, they just thought it was the stash house. They didn't know, it was money and drugs and all this. So they changed the warrant at last minute from a knock warrant to a no-knock warrant, right? They were like, all right. So, they changed it from a no-knock warrant to a knock warrant. So it was no knock. And then they were like, well, she's there. I'll just knock, right? And what happens is they went and it's, they're saying they knocked. Now, the interesting piece of it is that if anybody's ever done what they call canvassing, right? Some people may have been canvassed, but they don't understand how it is. Like, let's say somebody gets shot down the hallway here in our apartment building, and I just hear banging, but I don't hear anybody say anything. The police will come here and say, "Hey, did you hear police knocking? Did you hear anything?" And I'll be like, "Well, I heard banging, but I didn't hear anything else." Well, it may be because I'm far enough away where I could just hear the banging. I couldn't hear people talk, right? I couldn't hear what they said. So when someone says, "Well, they have 11 witnesses that said they didn't hear anything," that is not unusual, right? That is not unusual. I remember one time, to show you how this happened to me one time. There was a case in which someone. Let me read the super chat. I love your channel, dude. My Twitter message was not legal advice. Oh, cool. No, I got you, bro. I got you. I'm headed there right after I finish this. I'll be reading it ASAP. Thanks. So let me just be clear. So this has happened to me one time. There was one time. It was when I was on patrol. Actually, I hadn't become a supervisor yet. I wasn't a sergeant, so I was still a patrol officer. And someone had been robbed. So we got an emergency call, robbery in progress by the park. So we were like, oh my God, so who is this? So it was me and my partner. So my partner reached first and the guy ran. So now we're chasing this guy, down the streets of Harlem. So he runs up into a building, right? So, but we're like behind. So we see him and we see him go into the building. So we're running and he, flies upstairs. So we get up, so we do our we call it a vertical. So we do a vertical, we check the floors. So we get to like the top 2 floors and we don't see anybody, right? So, but we see the roof access. So we're like, shit, did he go on the roof? But the roof access is locked. So we're like, all right, it looks like he's on the roof, but we're not sure because the roof access is locked. So we start knocking on doors, right? Hey, did you guys hear anything? Did you guys see anything? Nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything. Nobody heard anything. But then we get to the last apartment. We knock on the door. We say, hey, did you guys hear anything? He says, no, I didn't hear anything outside, but I hear somebody up on the roof, right? Walking around. We know the guy's on the roof. So it happens where you can have, and if we put that report, we can say, well, we talked to 10 people. Nobody heard nothing, but one guy heard something on the roof. That didn't mean, that the person wasn't on the roof. That just means that, that was the only person in the right position to actually hear something. And I think that's what you have here in Brianna Taylor's case, where you can have 11 people who say, we didn't hear anything because we were in our apartments, but you had somebody supposedly on the stairs that heard the police and saw what was going on. So that person would be in a better position to tell you whether the police knocked and announced versus somebody who's inside the apartment who didn't hear anything. And that's what I think people don't understand sometimes. Is that, but in this situation, I'm not exactly sure whether, all these people were outside. It's 1 o'clock in the morning where the witnesses who they believe heard the police knock where they were at. But I think that it's one of those situations where you have some witnesses who are just in the best position to actually hear whether the police announced themselves or not. And other witnesses who you do canvass, knock on those doors, say, did you hear anything? And they're going to say no. So, let me look at the chat because some people, chat is going a little crazy. I'm missing something. Oh, I'm biased. Yeah, maybe I am. I don't. People scroll. Bias is how you look at something. It may be Crimson. You may be 100% correct. It may be a bias. I'm just telling you about my experiences and what I've gone through. And yeah, sometimes. It may be my own personal professional bias, right? I've done search warrants. I've written search warrants. I've executed a search warrant. These are things that just happen, and I can only talk from my experiences, being both an officer, a prosecutor, and dealing with this type of stuff. Hell, I've had police come to my home, to execute search warrants. So, I can't, I can't change my point of view, but I can only lay out the facts and tell you how I'm interpreting them. So I'm sorry if you feel that I'm just that biased, but it's a condition of my experiences. That's all I can tell you. And welcome to everyone else. all the new people. Yes, this is my, and just so people don't know, these are my early morning streams for my international fans, because when I first started out, most of my fans were from all over the world. So I do these streams just to keep them informed and to have a conversation. So welcome for those of you who are up early in the United States, and welcome to the stream. All right, so let's get back into the Brianna Taylor thing. Let's finish to see what ABC is continuing to say.
And so several officers testified that they actually knocked and identified themselves before barging in. Now, we know that Brianna's boyfriend, who was Kenneth Walker, who was inside the home with her at the time, the apartment, he says police did not identify themselves. But several officers in testimony contradicting what Kenneth Walker said. One officer saying they knocked on the door for at least 2 minutes, identifying themselves and then knocking, identifying themselves again, and then knocking. In testimony, one of the officers described those few chaotic seconds when they barged through that door and the gunfire began. Let's take a quick listen to some of that testimony describing the chaos.
I'm at the threshold of the door. I am immediately overwhelmed with bright flashes and darkness, and what I describe as a movie reel that's doing that ticking where you see white, black, white. I know John is now not where he's supposed to be. There's nobody in front of me. John is now on the ground, or John is below me. And there are still these flashes happening, these vivid white black flashes. So there are these vivid white lights followed by this darkness. In the room, and I don't see a room, I just see this hall. You know, it's like a surreal thing. Like, if you told me I didn't do something at that time, I believe you. If you told me I did do something, I probably believe you too. But I think it's important for me to tell you what. So during this flashing light, I am seeing this human shadow figure. I don't think I said that, so I just want to say that. So larger than normal human shadow figure.
And so there in
One second. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. I had another audio playing in the background. So there are a couple of things here. First, did they knock? Did they not knock? So you got one witness who they say was in a great position to hear them knock and announce. They said they knocked. They said they announced. They said they're knocking for 2 minutes. You know, who do you believe, right? That's what it always comes down to. You know, what reason does the cops have to lie about it? You know, what reason does the boyfriend have to lie about it? And I think this is where, as you know, when you're a prosecutor and you're trying to figure out who's telling the truth, right? The police is saying one thing, the witnesses inside is saying another thing, and the first thing you want to say is that somebody's lying, but not all the time. There are times where both sides can be telling the truth, right? And I'll tell you from personal experience. We moved to an apartment in New Jersey at one time. And the person who lived in the apartment before me happened to have a mental illness, but we didn't know that, right? So we had been there for almost a year, and one night we heard banging at the door at about 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. Now this is when I was still an officer, so I had all my stuff with me, so I was like, "Who the hell's banging at my door at 2 in the morning in Jersey?" We got a problem. So I get strapped up, vest goes on, we go into the door hard because people are banging on the door like we got a problem. And don't forget we had concierge, like I had a doorman downstairs, like we were at the next level. So we was like, yo, if they came up through the doorman and banging on the door, we're gonna have an issue. Both can be true. Police could knock, but since they were apparently in bed watching a movie, they may not have heard it. Yeah, exactly. The Six Secrets girl, you've killed my story. But yeah, so we were sleeping, and I got a baby in the room, so we got. I got up, click, and while I'm going to the door, who is it? The police. As soon as they said that, everything got to go back. Hold on 1 second. I got to put everything back, right? Now I got to go to the door. They can't see me there, so, but I put my badge on. So I got my badge, So I opened it. So No, I didn't put my badge on. I took my badge, but I forgot to put it on. So I opened the door. So the guy's boom, boom, boom. So he keeps knocking, banging hard. So then I opened up the door. Now, initially, I didn't hear they were police. But then when I got close to the door, I did hear them say police. So I opened the door and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, can we come in? So I'm like, hell no, you cannot come in. So I'm screaming this back at him in the hallway. You cannot come in. Hell no, can you come in? You can stand in the doorway unless you have a warrant. You cannot come into my apartment. I'm screaming. Remember, it's 2:00 in the morning, and I'm screaming at the police, like, no, hell no, you can't come in here, right? So then the cop is like, I'm sorry, we got a call that the person who lived here who's living here had just called their mom and said that they were going to commit suicide. So that's why we're here, because it was like 3 or 4 officers. So I let them in at that point, and we had a conversation. No, the guy didn't live here. Maybe you guys got the wrong address. And then I showed them my badge. I'm like, yo, look, this is me. And they were like, oh. So then they ran downstairs and started screaming at our security guard, like, why did you tell us he was, that cop up there? You could have got us shot. But that's what I mean, because if what happened in Brianna Taylor's case, both sides could be telling the truth. It's more than likely that Walker, Brianna Taylor's boyfriend at the time, he could have just heard the knocking and may not have heard anybody say police. And it's true, the police could have been outside screaming, boom, 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 police, and you only hear the knock, so you don't hear the police. And if I was in that situation, understanding the situation that my girlfriend's in, understanding that there's been things going on, it is possible. I think it's highly reasonable to suspect that. I think it's. I just want to be clear. I think it's highly reasonable that the boyfriend is justified in firing at the police, and that's why he wasn't charged. He's 100%. I think he could be 100% justified thinking that those were intruders coming in. They banged it. He just see people coming through the door. He's allowed to shoot and to protect, his family and what he has. Right. That's the castle doctrine down there in Kentucky. But then I also believe the police, at that instance, thinking that they knocked, thinking that they announced, are justified in returning fire to that situation. So that's what I'm talking about. It's awful what happened, but legally, you could have a situation where both sides are justified in using force. And it's not an easy pill to swallow, because we're always used to there has to be a good guy and bad guy in all situations. But in some situations, it's just a horrible concurrence of events in which the police could have knocked and announced and breached entry because they had a lawful warrant, and the person inside thought they were criminals and tried to shoot them, and then they returned fire thinking that person was trying to stop them from executing that warrant. I know, I know, and I know that's not going to make people happy, but that's the reality of the world we live in, right? It's just the reality of the world we live in. Let me continue on with this.
That audio recording, we hear one of the officers in testimony describing those few seconds, calling it chaotic, saying he saw a lot of flashing lights and then suddenly everything went dark, also saying that it happened very, very quickly. And Lindsay, we know it was in those seconds that Brianna Taylor was shot and died almost instantly there on the scene. Lindsay.
And as we heard earlier, the Kentucky Attorney General said publicly that 2 of the officers were, quote, justified in firing into Taylor's home because her boyfriend fired first. Do we know if the Attorney General said that to the grand jury, and was that the grand jury's conclusion as well?
Well, Lindsay, from listening to what the Attorney General has said publicly and hearing all of the information on these tapes, we know that the Attorney General never presented a case on those other 2 officers to the grand jury. So they did not reach any conclusion when it comes to those 2 other officers, because the Attorney General said from the beginning, because Kenneth Walker fired at them, they were justified in using their weapons. And so there was no case to move forward with the grand jury. They never heard anything on those other 2 officers, Lindsay.
And we also know that some of the grand jury proceedings were not recorded and made public. Why was that the case, and what was left off?
Well, Lindsay, the Attorney General says this is customary. The prosecutor's statements, their recommendation to the jurors, and the jury deliberations themselves, those things were not recorded, and because of that, were not part of this release that was made to the public today. The Attorney General says they just don't record those portions of it because that's not considered evidence. Only the evidence is recorded. So those moments, those things, we won't actually ever know, Lindsay.
So with this, I just want to say, people who are calling the prosecutor corrupt, people who are saying, really, I think there's a difference between trying to get justice for someone and just trying to get revenge for something, right? And the law is trying to seek justice. It's not trying to seek revenge. The killing of Brianna Taylor was tragic, but in some ways, it just wasn't illegal. It wasn't unlawful, right? It was a host of tragedies that happened all at one time, right? And I do think the boyfriend, because you could easily all the comments being made about the police shooting Brianna Taylor and why they should be charged could be the same arguments for the boyfriend being charged, right? People can say, well, he heard the police and he shot anyway. Well, how do you know he heard the police? Is it reasonable to think that? Is it reasonable to think that the police didn't say it when you had all of them saying they announced, and you had a witness outside saying they announced? You're going to hear now 11 people said they didn't hear anything. Yeah, but what position were they in to hear whether there was a knock and announce? Whether somebody on the 5th floor and on the 2nd floor and they were knocking on the 1st floor. You have 11 people who you question, but that doesn't mean they were all in the same situation. And one of the biggest pieces of this, which I think is missing in all this, is you keep hearing the statement, no drugs were found at Breonna, no drugs or money were found in Breonna Taylor's home, right? You've heard that throughout the story, and that was one of the big catalysts of this thing, right? No drugs were found at the location, there's nothing there. And that was because on the police report they put, no drugs and things were recovered from the apartment. So everybody kept saying, well, hey, Breonna Taylor was innocent, there was no drugs, innocent EMT. But that statement is misleading. True, but misleading. And it's misleading because the police didn't search the apartment, right? After what happened, the police did not search the apartment. And the reason why they didn't search the apartment was because they just killed someone, right? They just had this whole thing happen, killed someone. It was a tragic accident. And now you're going to search the apartment? So it's like, I understand why the police didn't search, but they've taken the fact that the police didn't search, and now we're just saying that because the police didn't search, that means there was no drugs, no money there. There may have been, or there may not have been. Who would really know, because the police didn't search? But I think if you correct the record and make it very clear that the police didn't search the apartment because of this tragedy that occurred, and then you understand that it wasn't like they searched and found something. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. So let's see who is let me see. This looks like some. Oh, who's corrupt? Josie B. Josie B, why are you hitting all caps? I see you. I scan the chat sometimes. Josie B, you seem like you're mad at me. I'm sorry, Josie B. I'm just kind of putting it out there. I understand this. I understand this is emotional. So Josie B, there's going to be some cases where you agree with me. Trust me. There's some people who agree with me on this case, but you go to my Ahmaud Arbery video, and those are the same people saying that I'm crazy on that video. So it really depends on how you accept all this stuff. So don't be mad at this one case. This is just one case, and this is us evaluating this one case. You may come to a different conclusion on another case. So please, Nate the lawyer. Illegal doesn't mean immoral. It wasn't right. Yes, no. Crimson, Crimson's long time sub. Crimson is one time 100% cool. Yes, I don't mean. I'm not even saying this was right. I'm not saying this was right. I'm just saying, was it legal, lawful, or unlawful? And I think here you're right. I think it was lawful, but it could also be immoral, because law and morality aren't cousins. They are separate things. It's not ABU. I think that's at me, but the A and the B are like the A and the T and the B are like so separated on the keyboard. I don't know if that's a mistype, but no problem, Josie B. All right, so the Brianna Taylor case seems to be open and shut. It seems like I don't know how you guys feel about it. Do you guys feel that the state came out with the right decision? Oh, AB about. Thanks. It's not about you. Okay, cool. Do you guys feel like the state came out with the right decision? Do you think it's tragic now? But now I think you start getting a piece of why the family may have gotten paid, because the police, there were some procedures. The police, they didn't search. There was no, the fact that they didn't search, the fact that she was killed, the fact that she was unarmed, the fact that you have this issue about whether they did or did not announce. It seems to be a lot here. So it's a tough case. And a lot of these cases aren't just open and shut. I think the media played a huge role in saying, like, first, let's just go over some of the lies, right? And I hate calling them lies. So some of the mistruths. Number one, that they were at the wrong address. That's been definitively proven false, right? This was the right address. That she was sleeping in bed. That's another thing that just happened not to be true. She wasn't sleeping in bed. She was up. She was up in the hallway next to her boyfriend. The fact that police just kicked down the door and started shooting wildly, that just happens not to be the case. So, and that police searched the apartment and found nothing. That's untrue too. They didn't search the apartment. So the news media, I think, has built this up in such a way to show that this was just some innocent EMT sleeping in her bed, murdered by police, kicking down the door, which there's a lot more nuance to this case than that. And it is a tragedy. It is a tragedy. Brianna Taylor's mother lost her daughter. No matter what she did before, it is what it is. But let's just call it what it is. This was a tragedy. And, civilly, I think the city did the right thing and to close this chapter, but criminally, there's nothing there. There's just nothing here. And I'm sorry for people who think there should be, but if you want this to be criminal, you got to go change the law, because the law is the reason why these cops aren't being charged. The cops were fired upon and they returned fire. If the cops can't return fire in that situation, then what do you expect them to do? I'm sorry. This says the law and morality are related. Our legal system inspired by the Bible and Hammurabi's legal code. I would say I do think they are related, because the interest of justice. But the law is not a vehicle of morality, right? The morals, any lawyer or any academic would tell you that. But I also think it's aspirational in a sense. So, but just because a case comes out one way, it's not coming out that way on a moral because of moral reasons. It's coming out that way because of legal instance. And sometimes they do not match. There are times where the person who should morally win loses the case, right? Because the law demands it. So that's why we most of the time we say the law is not a moral vehicle. It just is not. Nate the lawyer, why didn't the prosecutor being up in the memo about gentrification in the neighborhood? I don't know. I don't know about the gentrification neighborhood. I heard about something like that, but I just was looking at the events that were there, trying to figure out if those events were lawful. So I don't know about the previous stuff about the gentrification. I didn't look into that. And just like there's a lot of things too about there being a dead body found in a car and all that stuff. And the reason why, like, if you'll see in the comments of the video, a lot of people are adding facts that I wasn't even aware of, like a dead body in a car and all sorts of stuff. But the reason why I didn't add those facts, even though I was able to confirm some of them, the reason why I didn't add some of those facts was because it was irrelevant to what the judge saw. Like, when you're evaluating a warrant, the judge doesn't know about all this. The judge just knows about what's on the warrant. So you say, okay, this is what the warrant says. Would you have decided it's probable cause based on this warrant? The second piece is, this is what the cops said they saw. So there may be other information that comes out later, but I like to put you in a position where the police saw at that time, without the hindsight of 2020, knowing that, hey, we have all this other stuff. We just want to see it from what the cops had right there. That's what I try to do, right? Because it would be unfair to give you all this new information to try to help you make a decision about that incident when the cops didn't know any of that, or the judge didn't know any of that before they signed the warrant. So there is a lot more information, and I don't know about how the gentrification thing works within the whole piece of it, but I'll look it up. I'll check it out. All right. So we've talked about Brianna Taylor, how the grand jury, thing didn't change anything, right? It didn't change anything. Benjamin Crump and everybody made it seem like this was some bomb that came out, and it happened to be another nothing burger. It came out and just, it was a dud. I do think the prosecutor in this case did the right thing. I think the prosecutor in Ahmaud Arbery did the right thing. I think the prosecutor in George Floyd thing did the right thing. For George Floyd did the right thing. So, it's a tough job being a prosecutor because you got to seek justice. You can't just seek revenge for the mob, and that's what I think these guys are doing. Here we go. Nate the lawyer. You don't need 2020 hindsight to break down the door at the time in the morning. That's true. I would say this though. To this question, you could go in 6 o'clock. Knock on the door, they'll open up and then you bust in that way. You know what I'm saying? Because you go at a reasonable time, right? I know why they went at 1 o'clock in the morning banging on somebody's door. Think about this. If somebody comes to your door banging on the door at 1 o'clock in the morning, you're probably either going to call the cops or you're going to be ready to rumble, right? Who the hell's knocking on my door, banging on my door at 1 o'clock in the morning? Just like when it happened to me. So I would not be, I'm not shocked that something like that would happen, but generally, if you're serving these warrants, you serve it at 6 o'clock in the morning because at 6 you wake up, you're like, who's knocking on my door at 6 o'clock in the morning? It's different than knocking at 6 o'clock at 9 o'clock at night, or even sometimes you go in the middle of the day if the person's home during the middle of the day, because it's easier when somebody just opens the door regularly. Police, we have a warrant, and you just walk in. It makes it easier for both the police and everyone to be safe. So that's why most warrants are served during the daytime hours, right? Because it makes it safer when we're not thinking that there could be trouble at the door. You don't know who's at the door. So let's move on to our next story, guys. So we have to talk about Trump, right? Trump. So I might be breaking news for you this morning. Another person in Trump's inner circle has been found to be positive with COVID-19. So let me play this. Let's watch this together because this is breaking news for me. I didn't even know this until this morning. So this is now the next person for Trump on Trump's team who has been found to be positive with COVID-19.
And what we know in this special 3-hour Fox News at Night. So stay with us and we kick things off with White House correspondent Kevin Corke at Walter Reed Medical Center, where the president is tonight. Hello, Kevin.
Evening, Shannon. As you can imagine, the president is here and resting comfortably at Walter Reed. But the unfortunate circumstance surrounding some of the inner circle continues to spread. As you just pointed out, Kellyanne Conway has now reported that she, too, has tested positive for COVID-19. In fact, she took to Twitter. Let me share what she had to say. She said, tonight, I tested positive for COVID-19. My symptoms are mild, a light cough, and I'm feeling fine. I've begun a quarantine process in consultation with physicians. As always, my heart is with everyone affected by this global pandemic. Conway, you may recall, attended the Supreme Court nomination event at the White House this past Saturday. In fact, a number of other high-level officials who have also come down with COVID attended that event. We still don't know if that had any circumstance to be perhaps a super spreader event, for example. There's no basis in that speculation, but it seems at least worth pointing out that she was there. And I should also tell you that the nominee herself, Amy Coney Barrett, was also there, and she has tested negative. Meanwhile, earlier today, dramatic images as Marine One departed the White House, as a nation and a global community, at least for a moment, wondered what was coming next. Before leaving, the president recorded a video that he posted on Twitter.
I want to thank everybody for the tremendous support. I'm going to Walter Reed Hospital. I think I'm doing very well, but we're going to make sure that things work out. The First Lady is doing very well. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will never forget it. Thank you.
Now, I mentioned Kellyanne Conway has tested positive for COVID-19, but a number of other folks who were in the president's inner circle have tested negative. Among them, Ivanka, Don Jr., Eric Trump, and others. In fact, earlier tonight, we saw Don Jr. speaking with Sean Hannity. He talked about the fact that he spoke with the president earlier today.
Well, let's get back to it. So, Kellyanne Conway now has tested positive for coronavirus. Now, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. This Trump thing has me, part of me, right? There's a part of me who, when you find the president is sick and is taken to the hospital, I'm scared for the country. I'm concerned for even him, for the president himself, that oh my God, he's going to a hospital. I hope he's okay. He has young children. He has a family. He has a support system around him. His wife. No matter what you think about him politically, or what have you. As a human being, you don't want to see anybody go through that, and you hope him the best, right? You hope him the best, and I think that's, and it's the sickening part about this is what was going on Twitter. Twitter is just about, let him die and all this. And I'm like, my God, I understand the argument that comes from the other side, right? That Trump is that he deserves, that he most deserved this, that he was the one who was, what did they say? That he intentionally lied to people, he downplayed the virus, he did all this, and he deserved to get COVID. That's essentially what they were saying on Twitter. But I think that argument is different than saying that he deserves to die, that he should do that. That's, it's like, where did our humanity go to? Because you could have differences of opinion on things, right? And if somebody falls, ill to something or something happens, then you can generally you can separate their response to something versus their own well-being. I can say definitively, I hope the president gets better. I hope that this was just very precautionary. And tonight he comes back home and he's like, hey, I'm good. I'm just going to continue to quarantine at home for 14 days and nothing. Like I can see that, because I'd rather battle ideas, but, wishing death upon the man and all this other stuff and hoping that he stays sick. I think that's, people should be embarrassed that they feel that. I don't think you should ever be embarrassed about your feelings, but you should be embarrassed that you're saying that or promoting that on Twitter. That's ridiculous, and I always thought it was ridiculous. But I do want to say, let's bring it back to the other side. So on one side, yes, hopefully our president will recover, and all will be good, and he can go on and continue the campaign, and whatever happens with the election happens with the election. That's one piece of it. I want to make sure that's very clear. That's my position on this. I want Trump to survive. I want him to become better. And I hope to God, that everything is okay with him. And I hope the best wishes for his health and his family. That man has a family, and he should go back to his family. That needs to be said. Now, we got to go to the other side. When you talk about viral infections, there's difference between, you want to limit exposure to the virus. And the only way you limit exposure to this virus, you can only get it from one person to the next person, right? You limit exposure by limiting your contact with people. The way you do that is 6 feet apart. That means the viral particles can't get to you. They don't travel 6 feet. And wear masks, because masks, that's 6 feet now. The viral particles can't even travel 2 feet because you got a mask on. So you got 2 feet with a mask, 6 feet, if without a mask. So that's why they tell everyone wear a mask, right? Because if I wear a mask, then that 6 feet becomes smaller. The social distance can become smaller because I have a mask on. The viral particles that I'm breathing out don't reach as far. But if I don't have a mask on, then it's easier to transmit. That's what they're telling you. So a lot of like the lockdowns and things of that nature was just isolating individuals, right? If you put somebody in a house and give them everything they need, then the virus can't get to them, right? If they're not becoming in contact with people or the outside world, they're not going to be able to get sick because the virus can't get to them. And that's just the simple mechanics of it. So the CDC says masks work. Dr. Fauci says masks work. Trump says masks work. Everybody says masks work. And that's why even with today, when you saw him going into the hospital, everybody was wearing a mask, right? There's no one, when you saw Trump today going to the hospital, Not one single soul was not wearing a mask. So for people who are saying masks don't work or masks are ineffective, then you've missed the memo, because I think that has been blown up. Just look at just look at Trump going to the hospital. Everybody was wearing a mask, even Trump, right? Every single person there was wearing a mask. So masks do work. But I understand the disagreement where, well, Fauci at the beginning said masks didn't work, and then at the end he said the mask work. So what is it? Let's just be clear. At the beginning of any type of this stage of virus, you just don't know it works, right? This is a new virus. Everything is coming down, and you're trying to figure it out as you go along. The virus just popped up really just a year ago, right? Almost a year ago. In October, it started popping up in China. So last year. And we got it here really in February, and it's really started picking up in about April. So you're learning a lot while you're dealing with the virus. And now you start seeing masks have become more effective because, now you've learned more about the virus. But I think for somebody to say masks do not work, I just think it's either you just don't agree with the science. And if you don't agree with the science, that's fine. But I think you just have to maybe educate yourself. Go to the CDC's website. Go, and just look to see what's happening. If masks didn't work, if masks were ineffective, why would everybody around the president, now that he is sick, every single person, not one person, is wearing a mask, right? Because obviously masks are effective. So I know that may be a tough pill to swallow for some people, but they just are. They just are. It's I hate saying it, but they just are. So when you look at what's happening now, do I feel the president is at fault somehow? I don't know. I feel two things. Number one, he's not taking hydroxychloroquine, right? Let's just be clear. Before, when he said he was taking hydroxychloroquine, he's not taking hydroxychloroquine, and that's another situation where we know that things are, that things are different now, right? Because before he was taking hydroxychloroquine just, because he thought he had been close to somebody. Nobody's talking about hydroxychloroquine now, right? Why? Because we learned that hydroxychloroquine was not effective. So now later on, we're not going to give something that could kill the president. They're not giving him hydroxychloroquine. But let's talk about what has happened. Number one, the president and his staff, for whatever reason, they weren't using masks. They weren't socially distancing. Matter of fact, even at the debate, they had someone giving the mask because they were indoors. So people were trying to hand out masks, and they rejected the mask. Now to know that what was happening is that this could have potentially stopped people from being exposed to the virus. It makes you think that those choices of not trying to limit the exposure in a certain way has led to this person being infected, right? Hope Hicks wasn't wearing a mask all the time. People weren't wearing a mask around the president. So I think people need to understand that, the public health officials and scientists, they're not lying to you. If you think Trump, the people who are telling you to wear a mask, people on Trump's team, all his doctors say wear masks and masks are effective. I have clips from the Surgeon General, from the CDC director, from every doctor on Trump's team says wear a mask and they're effective. But you get one person on Twitter saying the masks are ineffective, and now that's the story. And Trump and them knew that masks were effective, and they didn't. This is somebody who just didn't follow the doctor's advice. Now, would wearing a mask have stopped him from contracting the virus? I don't know, but I know that it would have lowered the probability that he would have been infected. Right. That's why Joe Biden, he matter of fact, they were complaining that Joe Biden wear a mask all the time. And obviously social distancing. If you look at some of the events that Trump was going to, they have pictures of him just randomly so close to people. This is the most important man in America, right? Let's just cut the ball. The most powerful and important person on the planet in our country should not be close to anybody with a pandemic out there, right? I wouldn't have him hugging anybody without a mask. Anybody who comes close to, they got to be tested, they got to wear a mask, and they got to stay 6 feet apart, right? Because he is the most powerful person in our country. If that's not happening, you're taking, I think, an unnecessary risk, and I think that's unfortunately what happened with Trump. To all those who think masks don't work, put one on and try to blow out a candle. Oh, very good. Interesting. That's good. But again, if you have evidence that masks are ineffective, show it to me. I would like to see it. But right now, just watch the president's crew all masked up. Everybody masked up. Seems like the games are over. All right. So we've gone from Brianna Taylor to Trump. Now, this is Chris Wallace from Fox News. Now, I don't know what's going on with Fox News because they have become, it seems like they're starting to move left a little bit. I don't understand why. They're starting to move a little more left. I don't think that they see the writing on the wall, but we'll see. Here is Chris Wallace, Fox News. This is my last little clip of the day. No. Before I go to Chris Wallace, one thing I want to say is that Boris Johnson. I keep calling him Boris Yeltsin because I just remember Boris Yeltsin from the Russian Federation thing. Boris Johnson got sick. And now a lot of people were saying that Trump was just going to the hospital out of abundance of caution. Let's just cut that. That's bull, right? People are saying that he's going there out of abundance of caution. He's not going out of an abundance of caution. He's going because he's a 74-year-old man who's a beast and checks all the boxes for high risk coronavirus problems, right? Shortness of breath. He's got a problem, right? People will say, well, how sick is he? He's sick enough where he has to go to the hospital, right? That's what I'll say. So let's just call him Bojo. But let's just be honest with it. At first, we were told that it was like Boris Johnson, we just going out of abundance of caution, right? Then we heard he's taking experimental drugs. Well, hold on. If he's okay and he's just got mild symptoms, now all of a sudden he's taking experimental drugs. Okay, I can accept that. Okay, well maybe they know something. Why if you're not that sick, I don't know why you're taking experimental drugs. And think about this also. How many people with mild symptoms? If you got mild symptoms, they tell you don't go to the hospital. They tell you stay home and suffer through it, right? They don't tell you. The only time you go to the hospital is when things get crazy, right? They don't tell you to go to the hospital with mild symptoms. So mild symptoms, experimental drugs, I already kind of started thinking something was a little crazy with that. Now you go from, first they say Trump is okay. He's got mild symptoms. He's going to stay at home. Then now he's taking experimental drugs. Now all of a sudden he's being transported to the hospital and staying at the hospital overnight out of an abundance of caution. That's, to me, I'm just not buying it. I think he's maybe sicker than people thought he was. Then they talked about the regimens he's taking. He's taking, aspirin because his blood is clotted. He's taking experimental drugs. I think Trump is sicker than most people think. And I think he's sicker because he just has obesity, 74-year-old, high risk group, high mortality. It's a bomb. It's a bomb. And I think they want to be able to manage it just in case he goes into crisis mode at the hospital. But this was the same thing that happened with Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson said, I'm just going to the hospital out of abundance of caution. And a lot of people think that, that's all he did. He went to the hospital, just hang out. People don't know he was in ICU. Matter of fact, I already got the clip printed up. Let's look at what happened with Boris Johnson, since everybody's comparing Boris Johnson's hospital stay with Trump's hospital stay. And I'm going to show you what what Boris Johnson's hospital stay was. Because again, at the beginning, they did say that Boris Johnson's hospital stay was the same as Trump. It was just out of abundance of precautions. But that wasn't accurate. Do I say it wasn't accurate? Well, you'll hear for yourself.
Hi, folks. I want to bring you up to speed with something that's happening today, which is that I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus. That's to say, a temperature.
When it was announced that Boris Johnson had tested positive for COVID-19, this was back in March. And I think it's fair to say that the nation was shocked. This was also just still really early days in the pandemic. He's a divisive figure, but I think even people who don't like him, and there's plenty of those in the UK, but I think that the whole nation was sort of just cheering him on and hoping for a speedy recovery. Initially, 10 Downing Street downplayed the diagnosis. They kept repeating that he had mild symptoms, that he was still in charge, he was still working. When he went into hospital, his condition deteriorated very quickly. His words were that it could have gone either way for him.
I've today left hospital after a week in which the NHS has saved my life. No question.
Some people will say that he is more empathetic now. Some people will say he's weaker now. Some people may say that he hasn't changed a lot. I mean, it has been striking to see criticism coming from the libertarian wing in his party, who think that he's overly cautious and that there are too many restrictions. That said, the British public largely is in support of lockdown restrictions. And if anything, people think that maybe the government could be going further.
So today I set out a package of tougher measures in England. Early closing for pubs, bars, table service only, closing businesses that are not COVID secure, expanding the use of face coverings, new fines for those that fail to comply, once again asking office workers to work from home if they can, while enforcing the rule of 6 indoors and outdoors.
One notable.
So, just to be clear, this man almost died, right? He said the hospital saved his life. So, and we heard the same things. Mild case, going in, nothing to worry about. Next thing you know, he's on camera. Yo, I almost died in there. They saved my life. You know, is that the same thing happening with Trump? No. But Boris Johnson was 54, Trump is 74. Again, you know, this is reading tea leaves, but I'm just saying, I think people who are saying this is just like Boris Johnson don't know what happened with Boris Johnson. You know, Trump can, and I want to be very clear, Trump can be having a total, for Trump, I think it could be more likely that it's not anything. But also the thing that makes me think that it may be a little bit more for Trump is the fact that Trump, I just feel that Trump would, if somebody said, hey, Trump, let's just go to the hospital out of an abundance of caution. I don't think Trump would have been the guy like, all right, let's go to the hospital. I think he'd have been like, nah, hell no, I'm staying here. If I go to the hospital, you know, I got an election coming up. It's going to make me look weak. You know, it makes me look weak to wear a mask. Of course, it's going to make me look weak to go to a hospital and stay there overnight. You know, does that make sense? No, hell no, I'm not going to no hospital. I'm staying here. If you can't treat me here, I'm only going to the hospital if you force me to go. That's what I think Trump would have said. But maybe I might be wrong. I just see Trump as a strong man who says, hey, listen, I'm dealing with it here because I don't want people to panic thinking I'm going to the hospital. And that video he put out was like a hostage video. You know, I'm all right. I'm going to Walter Reed. But I don't know. I understand. And I wish the man well. But I do think after he comes out of the hospital, after he finishes, right, after he is okay, you know, hopefully, I promise you, things will change. He will not be around people without masks anymore. He will not, like, the whole operation is going to change because they know now it's life or death for the president and for the vice president, for anybody else in that staff. This is life or death. And I think it's going to change the way they perceive it and the way they happen. Things happen with them. So it is crazy. And you know, it's one of the more interesting things is listening to Fox News cover the president's hospital visit because they seem to also be turning this corner too. Check this out. I was kind of surprised to hear this, and it's a highly downvoted video too. I was actually surprised to hear that they played this, you know, on Fox and Friends because that is a pro-Trump, very friendly to Trump's show. So when I heard this, I was kind of like, wow, this is kind of crazy. So check this out. Oh, let me share audio. This happens sometimes. Yeah, I'm sharing audio. Okay. Let me play this. Oops.
Fox News Sunday anchor. He moderated the debate between President Trump and Joe Biden on Tuesday. Good morning, Chris.
This is Chris Wallace.
Good morning to all you guys.
Good morning.
Quite a development over the night.
Exactly. What does this mean for you? You were just in the same room with him. I don't know how close you got, just as close as what we saw. There was nothing that happened behind the scenes.
No, that's exactly right. What you saw on the TV is the closest I got to the president. I've been trying to sort of go over it in my mind. It's got to have been 10, 12 feet. He never approached me at the end of the debate. Vice President Biden did briefly to basically, as a matter of fact, I'm trying to remember the exact words, basically to say, I bet you didn't know you had signed up for this. Obviously, it was an extremely contentious debate. I certainly saw no sign of any flagging of energy in the president during the debate. As we all saw, he was loaded for bear. I will say a couple of things just to give you background and information I have that I'm very few people probably who you're going to be talking to today did. When we arrived in Cleveland, everybody, you had to take a test that was administered by the Cleveland Clinic. And it was one of those deep tests that goes all the way up your nostril, up, it seems, into the front part of your brain. So everybody that was in that hall had tested negative. The interesting thing, though, however, was that the Cleveland Clinic would set up the safety rules, said that everybody in the hall, with the exception of the president, the vice president, and myself, had to wear a mask. When Mrs. Biden came in, when members of her party came in, they were all wearing masks, and they kept them on throughout the debate. On the Trump side of the hall, Mrs. Trump came in wearing a mask, but took it off once she sat down. I didn't see when they came in, but all the other members of the first family that I saw there, including Ivanka, Tiffany, when they sat down, they weren't wearing masks. I'm told by the pool of reporters who was there that somebody from the Cleveland Clinic came up to the first family. I believe this was before Mrs. Trump sat down, and offered them masks in case they didn't have them, and they waved them away. And people in the hall did notice that while they were all wearing masks, including my wife and 4 of my children, that the first family did not wear masks during the debate. When it ended, Mrs. Trump came up to go on the stage, as I think everybody saw. She was not wearing a mask. Mrs. Biden did come up, and she was wearing a mask as she came up past me and went up to her husband. But certainly there was no sign during the debate of any problems with the president in terms of his health. But it is worth noting that there were the different people treated the safety rules inside the hall differently.
Tim and Elite is thrilled to announce our partnership with Whoop, the human performance company.
As a lead athlete.
Got to skip the ad. Fox News.
If it wasn't clear by now, it should be clear that no matter who you are, whether you're Tom Hanks or The Rock or Boris Johnson, you could get this. It doesn't matter how famous, rich, or powerful. But let's look. If Byron York was on an hour ago, and he said it's going to take us a while to wrap our head around the political implications of this, Chris, with all your years of experience. I'm not saying you're old, but I'm just saying with your years of experience, how is this going to affect the campaign at the...
Now, I don't want to go into Chris Wallace's how this is going to affect the campaign. But, you know, this we don't want to wear masks and we don't want to do this. I don't know. It's made it too easy for people to say, we told you so, right? Now, how is this going to affect the campaign? So for those of you who are out there who are going to vote for President Trump, right? God bless you, because guess what? There's nothing that's going to happen here that's good. Matter of fact, this may even make you want to vote for him more because of the sympathy card, right? Those of you who are going to vote against President Trump. Now, I don't think this changes anything for you, right? This just entrenches you more into, I'm not voting for this man at all, right? It just is. The never Trumpers, and this, you know, this is one of the more reasons. What people I think really don't understand is that elections aren't won by your core supporters. It's won by those people in the middle, right? If you have more in the United States, it's like almost 49% Democrat, 49% Republican, and that 2% in the middle are the people who swing the election either way, right? That's the swing states, right? Either we vote for this guy or this guy. Those are the people who you're trying to convince to vote for you. And I think Trump has been trying to do that in a couple of different ways. One, the first thing he's trying to do is, you know, say that we've turned the corner on the virus. The virus is behind us. We're looking forward. Economy is getting better. True. You know, jobs are going, you know, we got more jobs coming back. You know, things are opening up again. We're turning the corner. There's a brighter future. And I want to be the president to lead us into that brighter future. That's Trump's idea. That's what Trump is selling. Strength, stamina, American pride, and, you know, we've beat the virus. But on the second piece of that, I think him going to the hospital and catching COVID hurts that narrative, because the way he was putting forward that narrative was not wearing masks, right? Not social distancing. It's more than just saying that we're turning a corner, but you also want to act as if we're turning the corner, right? If you see me all the time with a mask and I'm saying we're turning the corner, you're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Why are you still wearing a mask, right? So I think this turn, this image of this thing being behind us, that's what they were trying to portray. And it's a political message. And I definitely understand there's a political message to this. And I think that's what kind of killed this whole issue, is that the political messaging against the public health messaging kind of conflicted at the small part. And that's why you were able to have these rallies. Don't forget, he was going to states and having rallies where people were saying that, it was illegal. Like, it was illegal to have more than 25% of the stadium filled. He was going to Arizona and blowing it up. People were shoulder to shoulder without wearing masks. So I think that political messaging is what's being hurt with this, because now he has COVID, right? It's reached the top. His family has COVID. So it makes it seem now that we haven't turned the corner. Matter of fact, it's so bad that he's in the hospital. 30 days after the election, he's got to spend 15 days in quarantine. So for half this, there's only 30 more days for you to campaign. Half of that time he's got to spend in the hospital and in quarantine. Think about that. So that is what I think it hurts. It hurts the public message that we've turned the corner on the virus, right? It does hurt. But there's a plus to it, because now when you get the sympathy card, you get people saying, I hope he's better. You get that piece of it. And I think the Supreme Court nomination also helps. You got a Supreme Court nomination out of it. But I think at the end of the day, this hurts Trump in that way. It hurts the narrative that we've turned the corner. It hurts the narrative that the virus is something that we've been behind. It doesn't hurt the fact. I think that's who it hurts, and I think that's who it affects. It's those independent voters who are going to say, is this really? And this is one hell of an October surprise. So, but again, if you're a supporter of this president, you have to just I think be really, really concerned with two things. The political piece of this, it's going to be irony, right? You didn't take the proper precautions and you got sick. That's the irony. I think no one's going to, the political piece of that irony is no one's going to forget that, right? Those are going to be ads. If President Trump gets back on the trampoline trail, the ads are going to be, it was his fault. Right? He can't protect himself. How can he protect the country? I can see the ads being written away. I think on the other side, it's going to be, I think Trump is going to have to turn the narrative into being, the virus is still serious. We're still taking care of it, and that anyone can get sick. And that's why people should take it more serious, because look, even the president got sick. So I think that's the way they're going to be trying to shape the conversation. But I really think that going forward, this is just going to be a hard thing to overcome for the Trump campaign. But I never count this president out, right? You never count this guy out. Whatever you do, this guy, you don't count out. This guy, if the people think that they have it in the bag and say it's over for Trump, you are sorely mistaken. This guy has 9 lives. This guy's a master. He's a master at getting his message out, and he's a master at getting his people to the polls. So, it's if you say that it's over for Trump, you are sorely mistaken. Don't take this man lightly. If you are not voting for this man, do not take this man lightly. This man can win, and he's done it before. And if you sleep on this guy, you'll wind up waking up with another 4 years of Trump. So yes, Silicon, he is the Teflon Don. This guy is like Rocky. He's got to be beat. You can't just hope for it. He's got to be beat. So, well, if you liked this today, don't forget, there's a subscribe button for those of you who didn't subscribe. Thank you again. Again, this is my early morning show for the fans for across the world, and just my thoughts on certain different topics. And I hope you enjoyed it. If anything, I will be here next week about the same time, just to go over it, and hopefully you enjoy this content. I have my next video coming out, which I think is going to shift. I have Elijah McClain. I'm doing that video, and it's a little tougher because that video has a lot more lore to go through it. So I'm gonna have to really pick that apart. So it's coming along pretty well, and I got some new equipment that I have to wait before I shoot it because there's like one of my wires went bad or something. But we're almost there. So listen, I want to thank you guys for watching. I know this was like an hour and a half, almost an hour and a half with the monologue, so I appreciate it. Thank you, Secrets Girl, for loving the lamp. Thank you for all the people who super chatted to me. I appreciate it. You know, it helps me grow, and it helps me continue to feed the beast. My name is Nate, lawyer and YouTuber, and I'll see you next week. And check out some of my videos. Go to the channel, check out some of the videos, and there will be some more coming out this week. I think I have 2 or 3 coming out this week. So I will see you guys later. My name is Nate Brody. Peace.